Welcome back to Chaos TV. You're here with myself, Pudge, and we're in the CTEC hour. But before we go any further, I do need to give you some contact details. If you want to get in contact about anything going on today on Chaos TV or this hour, please do not hesitate to get in touch. We are 01872 22 8844. That's 01872 22 8844. That's for both WhatsApp and calling us, but obviously please do get the bill payer's permission before you do so. You can also email us on hello@thisischaos.co.uk, and of course we are on social media at Chaos TV UK. Please use the hashtag KeepItChaos, and maybe you want to join us on Mixcloud, chat with each other while watching and listening to us. You can do that by going to watchchaos.tv, clicking that Mixcloud button. But anyway, I must say welcome back and welcome to our virtual cafe. I should have a couple of cappuccinos on the way, hopefully, you never know. And a very nice place this is too, of course. Over the next few weeks, CTEC Plus will be sharing lots of tips and advice and encouraging you to connect and reach out with friends, family and colleagues as part of the hashtag Be Kind to Your Mind campaign. As we know, January can sometimes be a challenging month, and especially when we reach that difficult third week in January, which is right now. This year, the Samaritans are encouraging people to be positive and share the warmth with a brew rather than being blue. So sharing a cuppa and listening to our loved ones, friends and colleagues can really make a difference to someone who may be struggling. Some good advice there. Now, another reason people can feel low at this time of year is the gloomy British weather, which can really have an effect on our mood. Earlier this week, I was so lucky enough to catch up with former BBC weather forecaster and now Met Office meteorologist Alex Deacon, who was able to provide us with some interesting statistics about our weather at this time of year and whether it really does have an impact on our feelings. Let's take a look. Welcome, Alex. Thank you for joining us today.
It's absolutely my pleasure, Pudge. Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. It's absolutely lovely to be able to chat to you in person. I never thought I'd get this kind of opportunity, so thank you for coming on the show. Obviously, this time of year can be a bit grey, a bit gloomy. It certainly has been for us. And we all seem to feel a bit better when there's blue skies and sunshine. Statistically, how much sunshine should we expect this time of year?
Well, you're right, Pudge. This is the dull time of year in every sense, really. But statistically, December is actually the dullest month. That is the month with the least sunshine across the UK, but January isn't far behind, and this December was particularly dull. So it depends where you live exactly, but across the UK, on average, in January, we only get 47 hours of sunshine across the whole month. Now, that does vary. So across the southeast of England, you get 60 hours of sunshine in January, so almost 2 hours a day. Whereas in northern Scotland, you get less than 1 hour a day. So it does vary quite a bit across the country. But January is a pretty dull month. Statistically, December is the dullest of all. And the December we've just had was very dull. So we've talked about the averages, but actually, obviously, year on year, you're going to get variations. And this December, the December just gone, was one of the dullest on record. The dullest December in most of our lifetimes since 1956. And the sixth dullest month on record across the whole of the Met Office records, which go back over 100 years. So December was exceptionally dull. January started dull. I'm pleased to say the sun is out today and it's absolutely beautiful, and it really, really does make a difference. Another good thing is actually the sunshine starts to pick up pretty quickly, pretty soon. So in February, statistically, you get half as much sunshine again compared to January. So yeah, it's pretty gloomy at this time of year, but it does tend to pick up fairly quickly, and we are heading towards spring. So some good news there.
Oh, brilliant. I didn't realise just it got that bad in December. I suppose we're distracted by so many things going on, festivities and all that. So I suppose we tend to focus more on January being that time of, that time of year when we've got nothing much going on. We notice it a bit more. But it's nice to know that things are only on the up now. What I want to ask is if there's any scientific evidence to suggest that the weather helps dictate our mood, or is that purely anecdotal?
There's a lot of anecdotal evidence, but there is also a lot of science behind it as well. SAD, seasonal affective disorder, is a well-known thing. It's been known about for a number of decades now. Now, that is a genuine form of depression, and lights have been developed to help people cope with that, particularly in these darker months. But actually, SAD, seasonal affective disorder, can affect people in the summer months as well. It's a smaller percentage, but it does affect people in those months with too much of the way of brightness. So there is, a lot of science behind that, but there's also a lot of science behind, just generally feeling a bit down at this time of year. It's often a time where we tend to eat more, we're more lethargic, and with less sunshine around, we tend to do a bit less exercise. So it is a well-known common feature at this time of year for people to generally be a little gloomier, just like the weather. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that. But as I said, it is perfectly normal. There's a few things that we can do. Get outside when you can, and days like today, if you get a bit of sunshine, make the most of it. But yeah, it's perfectly normal for everyone to feel a little down at this time of year.
Well, I'm glad it's not just me, because it definitely does affect me a little bit physically as well. I must admit, I get a few more headaches, things like that. And, you know, it really does. You look outside first thing in the morning, and one of the first things you're going to go is, oh, or ah. And the way you start your day very much, you know, affects how you go on as well. So I completely understand that. But what about yourself? Are you a man for all seasons? Sometimes it feels like we don't experience the seasons as perhaps we once did. As one of the sayings here in Cornwall is we have two of them, and that's we have winter and June.
Yes, that's a well-known expression around these parts. Personally, I mean, I love a bit of sunshine. I can't get enough of days like today. There's been few and far between so far this winter, but it's been an absolute crackerjack of a day today. It started off frosty. We've had blue skies all day. I love days like today. I love it in the spring when it starts to warm up as well, and you feel the warmth of the sun on your face. Do you know there's a word for that? The warmth of the sun on your face in winter is called apricity. I learned that from Susie Dent on Twitter. So there is a word for it, and it's to be appreciated. But I'm a meteorologist as well, right? So actually, for a meteorologist, blue sky days are a little bit boring. There's no clouds to look at. So I appreciate the gloomy days as well, because then you've got clouds to look at. So we always say, you know, always look up. There's always interesting cloud formations to look at as well. So even on grey days, there's always something to spot in my book. So I'm always pretty positive about the weather. You know, it's my job. I love it. I'm very lucky to have a job where every day is different.
As forecaster Alex Deacon was telling us earlier, the weather can really affect our mood, and especially at this time of year. We can see your lovely beach background there, as I mentioned earlier. Would you say the weather has an effect on you? What kind of things would you do to improve your mood, especially at this time of year? Would you say you have any top tips?
So I have some top tips, yeah. First off, around September time, I find I start thinking about the autumn and the winter, and I think, oh gosh, what are the dark nights and just the cold. And in fact, I've sort of spun that around and actually started to look at the positives in that. So I'm going to share my 5 top tips, if that's
Cool.
all right.
Absolutely.
So yes, yeah, as it says, you know, I just love when we wake up and we hear the birds singing, just getting outdoors, being in nature, looking at the trees, and yeah, the different colours. And then thirdly, put a date in the diary, have something to look forward to. I think that's really important. And then number 4, music is music for me just puts me in a good place. So I may wake up and not feel great, but if I put some music on, yeah, it changes my mood massively. And keep away from the news if you can. I mean, by all means, educate yourself, but when you're hearing the same thing every day, just come away. And that could be social media in itself as well. So yeah.
To meet you.
Nice to meet you too, and thank you for taking the time to come and chat to us. It's really nice to have you on. Could I ask you just at the start, what's your role at Christians Against Poverty, and what does the organisation support people with?
Yeah, so we are. So I work as a debt coach and a debt centre manager for Christians Against Poverty. They have 284 debt centres around the country that operate out of local churches. And my job is to go into people's homes and to help people with their debts by working with them. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not anything like that. My job is really to work with them, to gather their information about their debt, their financial situation, and then I hand that information over to Christians Against Poverty. And it's a charity based in Bradford, and in Bradford they will then put together a route out of debt for them and help them to move on towards that journey of being debt free.
Well, it can be quite a confusing sort of topic, can't it? Because it's very easy to get very wrapped up in your own finances and lose track of a few things here and there, which could really put you in a downward funnel, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And CAP's a very holistic organisation. We help with running CAP Money courses, which are basic budgeting courses. We have a CAP Job Club to help people find work, and we also have CAP Life Skills courses, which help people to live on a budget. But for many people, debt happens because of a single life event. Maybe a relationship breakdown, it may be a loss of a job, maybe a health condition or an illness. It could be a combination of those things, which can then have a downward spiral, which can not only affect your financial situation, but also your health, your mental health. So it has a very big impact, debt. And so often people can wait a long time to deal with the problem, can put it off to another day. Roughly about 50% of our clients will have waited at least a year before dealing with their debt, and 25% of them will have waited up to 3 years. And you can imagine how much worse the situation can get if you just leave it.
See, I've got a personal experience with this one because my mum and my dad, bless them, when he was around, they were both went into depression, and they stopped taking care of things so much, and I just had that gut feeling that something wasn't right. Thankfully, they weren't in any debt or anything, but they were very much going to spiral down towards it, and thankfully, because I caught it and I took charge, I sort of made sure things were being paid correctly here and there, got rid of a few things that weren't needed, and it brought things back. But sometimes you need someone to interject, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. In 2021, February 2021, there are over 400,000 people in this country who are suffering from destitution. So wow. They are people that have got to a point where they can't afford some of the basics in life, things like food or toiletries, clothing, shoes, heating. Some people, won't have a bed. And it can be so easy to kind of slip into that situation and to maybe feel like you can't talk about it. It's not something that you can share with other people. People can often feel quite ashamed about the situation, maybe feel that they've got to handle it themselves. And so it can become a far bigger problem if it's left unchecked. And it's really important to think about getting some help, trying to get help early. Because it does impact people's mental health as well as their physical health and their general well-being.
So talking about mental health, what can you tell us about some of the facts surrounding it?
Sure. So this is based on our client report, which came out in 2021. So 37% of CAP clients went without regular meals. About 20% couldn't adequately light their home because they couldn't afford the electricity. About 45% didn't know where to find help, even though there is a lot of help out there. Roughly 50% of people felt lonely because of their financial situation, and one of the reasons for that would be that often if you've got a very small budget and it's been shrunk by debt, one of the first things that goes is your kind of socializing, meeting with friends. You can become very isolated quite quickly because you haven't got the money to go out and meet people. Around about a third needed to visit the GP because of their mental health as a result of debt. And most tragic and most sad of all, I think, about 28% of our clients considered or attempted suicide as a way out of debt, because it just became too great for them. And that's really, really sad, because actually there is a lot of help out there, and people can get help. It doesn't need to get to that point. But sadly, for many people, it just becomes too much, and actually there is help. And I would urge people that if you've got a debt problem, if you're worried about your finances, get in touch with somebody, and we'll talk a bit more about that, I think, later. But do get help, because it is absolutely something that can be sorted out, and it doesn't need to get to that sort of situation.
Hi, my name is Adam Parr, and I'm a wellbeing coach for CTEC. And this is a podcast for CTEC Plus's Be Kind to Your Mind campaign. I'm bringing on my good friend Paul Forcione, who is a good friend of mine, and he's been on my own personal podcast. And Paul, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I'm honored that you thought of me and talking about men's mental health.
Yeah, no, you're most welcome. You instantly came to my mind when I, was given this opportunity to do this podcast. And, we've done really great podcasts in the past. And, for today's topic, I think, like mental health is a big, broad spectrum. And I think it's such an important topic to talk about. And we were saying earlier, for men, men have their battle with mental health as well. And you mentioned some great topics that, I think we should really kind of delve into.
Yeah, absolutely. The old school mentality of men is don't show weakness. Everything's okay. We're move forward. If you show any weakness, any type of emotion, you're weak. And that's just not the way to go. There's no surprise. That's why men die before women. One of the big reasons is because women do a better job of expressing their emotions than men. We hold it in a lot more. And as a result, when we get later age, it takes a toll on our body. And we should take a page out of what women do and be a little bit more emotional and share our emotion, be in touch with our emotions. You don't get any brownie points for just feeling good, for saying that you're good when you're not. That does nothing for you, and it's just going to make the problem worse and worse and worse. Being vulnerable is a strength, not a weakness. It's okay not being okay. If you get the help you need because you reach out and say, hey, you know what? I'm not doing well. I don't feel good. I have this sadness or this anger, or this depression, and it doesn't go away, and I need help. That's the first step of recovery. But if you just keep bottling it up and go to alcohol or drug use and do things that are unhealthy, you're never going to get through the problem. And that's what I wanted to dive into talking with you today.
Yeah, no, exactly. I really believe, what you said. And I think it's such an important topic. And I think, like you said, a lot of men kind of take things on board and they put it to a side and kind of that it's like a reservoir almost. So that cup just builds and builds and builds. And then, if we're not communicating how we're feeling or what's going on in our lives, that isn't going to go away, is it?
No, it just compounds and it gets worse and worse and worse. And the only way you're going to get better is expressing your emotions. We're human beings. We're entitled to feel sad. We're entitled to be angry. We can't beat ourselves up for those feelings. There's going to be times in our life where we don't want to feel that way anymore, that we're tired of feeling angry and sad anymore. And that's, one way to do it is talking with a professional and tell them that what your issues are. And another small thing that you can do when you're feeling that way is think about what is going well in your life right now. What are you grateful for? Because when you start to change your thinking and start to seek out more positive things are going to happen for you. But the only way you're going to do that is you be vulnerable with who you are.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think, it's all your mindset, isn't it? So, there are people out there that you can talk to. And I think if you're struggling with your mental health, I think a big thing, is kind of talking to the right people, having that kind of trust in people to be able to share your feelings or what's going on in your mind. And if you don't know anyone in your circle, I think, there are people out there that you can find, like on the internet, there are groups you can join.
Yeah, or coaches you can call or what have you. But yeah, you have to have a safe space. You got to set up a safe space where you're in an environment where you can share with somebody and you know that you're not being judged. And that person is listening to you, doesn't want anything bad for you, wants to support you. And now, that's not to say that they can't be honest with you. They may have to be honest with you and tell you, hey, you're doing something very harmful. And they're coming from a helpful place, not from a harmful place. And if you establish that relationship, then that's okay, that they can be honest with you and give you those hard truths. But you do have to set up an environment where you feel safe to be able to speak your emotions, because that's very, very important. If you do not have that, like you said, there's resources out there that you should seek, because every now and again, it's good to allow yourself to just dump what's going on. And sometimes you just need somebody to listen to you. And after they're done listening to you, you feel much better. But if you don't have that outlet and you're just holding it in and you suppress it with drugs or alcohol or whatever you do, that's just going to compound the problem to be worse.
Yeah, and I think that's the major issue, isn't it? People think that, they're dealing with the problem by doing something, for example, say drinking or engaging in certain activities. All of that's a distraction, isn't it? And it's not actually dealing with the main problem, And so I think sometimes people might not be aware that they're even doing that. They're just kind of caught in that loop of, avoidance. And like you said, they need to talk to, a professional, a coach, someone they can trust. And do you think that some people might be like this, like especially men, because maybe they might have taken things growing up from their upbringing, that's that kind of, just be strong, get on with it kind of thing, that kind of old school kind of approach?
Yeah, there's definitely stereotypes out there of how men have to be, and they can't show any emotion but strength. And that's passed down to generation. I think we're starting to kind of break that stigma a little bit, and hopefully coming up here that this won't be even a topic. It will just be about mental health. It won't be because men can't seek mental health treatment. So hopefully we get to that point where we don't even have to discuss it. We just talk about mental health as a whole, and not that men will want to seek it. That's the goal in my head, where I will want to take it, is having men just being okay with expressing themselves in those safe spaces. Now, I understand you don't want to tell every Tom, Dick, and Harry your issues, and I'm not saying that, but you got to set up systems in place for when you are down or you are angry, that you have an outlet that people will listen to you, whether that be a friend, whether that be a coach, whether that be a therapist, whether that be a physician. There's got to be people in your life that you can turn to when things aren't going well, that way you can seek that help or release those emotions. It's extremely important not to bottle them up.
We're in this barber's chair, which I've been in a few times for quite a while, which is quite cool. And you probably speak to a lot of people all the time because you're a barber. And I really appreciate that we're here with all the kit, which you can't see, but we can see. So why do you think why do you think men struggle with their mental health?
I think it comes from a place of like millennials, like where people have just, millenniums and decades where people have just been taught, or men have been taught with the stiff upper lip and to be masculine and and big boys don't cry. I mean, crikey, there is that song, isn't there, even where it's like, big boys don't cry, you're like.
Yeah.
So I believe that that's what men have been taught to be, very strong, and it's men are men, women are women, all that sort of thing, and I feel that they fail to open up because ego, the long and the short of it. It all comes from a place where men have to be strong and masculine and all this stuff, So yeah, it's a shame. It really is. It's just I wouldn't know where it comes from, but it comes from different places with everyone, whether it's from their childhood or whether it's something that happened to them only yesterday, you know what I mean? Or someone says something, it sticks with them, it hurts them, So yeah, it's a difficult one to say, to pinpoint, but yeah.
Okay, so kind of thinking about men's mental health and how men struggle with mental health. Do you think there's like a link with their appearance and how they approach it with coming to the barbers?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that when people open up in the barber shop, as you can see, I'm in your personal space right now. This goes against what we were taught was social distancing, even though distance isn't social. Right now, we are in a place where I am in your personal space. you need to have a certain amount of trust with me to get so close to something that is incredibly delicate. I mean, let's not forget that in the head is the brain and all your thoughts, and then of course the ear, which is, I don't know, I mean, I surf, so I had to go get my ears cleaned out not long ago, and I had a woman have to go in there with a little sucky thing, and it was like, she had to be like, really kind of get me used to talking to me. So I have a feeling that the reason people open up with me, and why I am quite open, a bit too open with people, is down to the fact that we're in each other's personal space right now.
Well, there's also that kind of element where there's something called a nut throat blade or something
Cutthroat.
like that.
Yeah,
cutthroat blade. The name's in the title, right?
Exactly.
So it's like having that blade right next to your face is a little bit like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's it. So I think that what you'll get is maybe people, gentlemen especially, open up. Even females, not even, not that it's not like current to any particular gender as such. It's just like it comes from a place of where you are entrusting me with blades around your eyes, ears, hair, your head, your brain. It's so I think that's where I see it comes from, really, if I'm honest.
Say some of the reasons that men find it difficult to reach out and seek the help they need, because obviously we've seen a little bit about it in the previous video as well.
I think that one of the biggest things that we experience is that kind of man up culture of
Sure.
that feeling like you shouldn't, that you shouldn't share stuff that's a little bit sort of soft or weak or anything like that. And actually what we've kind of come to experience actually is men do talk, it just needs the right environment to do that. And what we found is, sometimes a bit of solidarity, shared experience of someone else who's been through that and come out of the other side. It opens up almost the permission to talk about whatever it is that's bothering. I mean, we have people coming in, each week saying, well, my issue is not as bad as that, but actually it's, as another person, sorry. And what I always say to them is actually that issue is relative to you. If it's bugging you, you talk about it, and that's it. It's as simple as that, and that's why it works so well.
Absolutely, and I can't say personally how much I hate that phrase, man up. I've heard it over the years, especially when I was a kid, and even geekier version of myself, and the amount of times I heard that, it makes my blood boil. But I completely understand why it's a good example for obviously all of this. Chris, one more for you quickly, if you don't mind. What would you say are the biggest causes of pressure and depression in life, and maybe for men especially?
I think work is always a big one. I think that kind of drip feed of not feeling like you're good enough, not feeling like you're successful, but trying to provide for other people. It's a kind of a cultural thing, I think, that it's been ingrained, and it certainly is something that we see week on week that triggers other things. And I think having a workplace sometimes it forms the identity, which when that gets taken away can be really, really traumatic.
Absolutely. Adam, could I come back to you? Because obviously sometimes, even though you might need help, it can be tough, obviously, to know where to start. What kind of support can Andy's Man Club provide?
So first and foremost, we offer a peer-to-peer support club every Monday, apart from bank holidays, 7 till 9 p.m. And what will happen, facilitators like myself and Chris and around the country will have lots of different signposts and avenues where we can introduce you to different support networks that you may need.
Perfect. Chris, as we've seen, Andy's Man Club has really helped men who have joined the club. Do you think it helps that men in the club have gone through similar experiences?
Absolutely. I think, having seen firsthand where people will walk through that door pretty much, using that as the last straw. If this doesn't work, then and we've had this told to us a number of times. If this doesn't work, then I don't know what else to do. I think I'm done. Then listening to another guy talk about some situation they've been through and thinking, well, actually, I can try that. This isn't the end of the road. But also actually to be able to in a place where people are so honest, it kind of enables that conversation to take place, and I think actually it kind of puts a lot of stuff into context. So yeah, absolutely. When people sort of hear a range of experiences, it certainly puts things into perspective. That actually, they're not alone in dealing with it.
Yeah.
Well, now obviously today we're supporting the Time to Talk Day,
Of course, yeah.
which is tomorrow, and we want to encourage people to start those conversations with friends, colleagues,
Sure,
family.
yeah.
But some people don't necessarily have that support network. How can the Samaritans help?
We can listen. The phone number is 116 123. I'll repeat that. 116 123. It doesn't. The crucial thing is it doesn't show up on the phone bill.
Okay.
It's confidential, private, and if you don't have people close to you to whom you can speak, or put it this way, if the family is the issue, call us.
That's
it doesn't
brilliant.
get back to you. Just call us. We'll listen. Whatever it is, if you feel you need to speak to somebody, but the somebodies you have available aren't the right somebodies, call us.
I love how very nicely put that was as well. Very, very unbiased. No, I completely understand. And I love the fact that it doesn't show up on the phone bill. That's fantastic.
That's something we've been mentioning recently because it's it's important.
Yeah.
It's a private call, it's a confidential call, and therefore it doesn't show up on the phone bill.
Could be one of those barriers for people, I suppose, if they
It could
try
be.
not to be.
It could be. Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Now, some people may be finding everyday life hard, and maybe they can't quite put their finger on what it is. I remember I've been there a few times. You wonder what's going on. You wonder why you're feeling like that. What would you say are the most common triggers for people who are struggling with their mental health?
People struggling with their mental health and people who are not necessarily struggling with their mental health, they face possibly isolation, they have issues with their family, they may have money worries, they may have relationship worries, they may be facing bereavement. These days, of course, they may well be worried about coronavirus and climate change. The difficulty I'm having with this question, the reason I'm slowing down as I answer it, is people have such a wide variety of issues that it would help them to share, I think is the way to put it.
Yes.
And one thing we never do is talk about the calls. Once you start, you only have to take 1 or 2 calls to realise it is the promise. You're never going to share. It's such a privilege to be on the phone call with a caller to the Samaritans, to be trusted, to be considered worthy of trust. I always get emotional in these situations. Don't panic. There are actors who can cry at will. I wish I could not cry at will, but it happens. And the answer really to your question is people ring up about absolutely everything. And what I would say to anybody is, if you feel that you need to talk about it, talk to us. You may think, oh, it's not a big enough problem, or they deal with more, worse problems. But actually, we're there for anybody who needs to talk.
Would you say, for something I always think about as well, is every person is different, and every person can deal with similar situations in very different ways, and that's no one's fault.
Something we absolutely do not do, and this is emphasised in the training we have, is we do not judge people. If it bothers you, it bothers you. We will listen, because thinking that somebody is not going to take your problem seriously, that doesn't happen with us. We're there to listen to you. But that's a problem people have with their families. The thing we will never say, but it's not that difficult to hear in other contexts, is, oh, don't be silly, you won't do anything silly, will you? Oh. And the other thing, of course, you get with your family and so on, oh, I had a problem like that and I dealt with it the following way, and so on and so forth. We'll listen. We'll take you seriously. We won't judge you. We accept that you've called us because you feel you need to call us, and we will honour that.
Beautiful. Really, really beautiful. We're obviously all probably guilty of doing this, and that's sending a message rather than picking up the telephone. I'm definitely guilty of that. What do you think has happened to the art of a spontaneous telephone call? Are those days over?
No, well, you see, when Claire and I were talking about questions for this, and I brought up the art of the spontaneous phone call, because here's the thing. I don't mind declaring how old I am. I'm 61 in a couple of weeks' time.
And looking
this
good
month,
for it.
actually. Oh, bless you. I wasn't fishing for compliments, but now that you're saying I do appreciate it, because I feel really lousy today. I've been awake since 2:30. So thank you for that, Pudge. I really appreciate that. But the art of the spontaneous phone call, I guess because I'm from the era that I'm from, you know, the first business that I set up in Thailand 30 years ago, I had no mobile phone. It was too expensive to call London. I set up a business for Oxford University Press, and I used telex machines that we had to make a telex tape to send a message, you know, you know, and I talk to people about IT and comms, and they, you know, a telex machine could just as well be a carrier pigeon. You know what I mean? So, you know, I come from the era of rotary dial phones. Oh my God, I shouldn't be admitting that, should I? I really should be admitting that. But
my gran used to have one. Yeah, I can use them. I've sidetrack, I know. I've seen videos of people trying to use them online and not having a clue what they do.
Oh, they're hysterical, aren't they? Those things that go by. But you know what? In all seriousness, the whole thing about a rotary dial phone, and we're sidetracking here, but I know that's okay. We had a 9-day internet outage where I live at the beginning of December. And of course, I work from home permanently, but with so many people working from home, and there's no mobile phone signal where I live, you're a little bit stymied, really. And I thought to myself, it was at the time that there'd been that massive storm up north, and so many people were without electricity. And I was thinking, well, I haven't got the internet. I'm sitting in the car to do my work, and this, that, and the other. Because it's difficult for me to go to the office because of COVID. And that's at least I've got electricity. And then I realised that if I didn't have electricity, I have no internet. I actually have no landline phone, because that's connected to the electricity now. And of course, I wouldn't have access to the net without getting in the car and going and finding a mobile phone signal. 21st century problems, I know, but nonetheless. So I mentioned this to a friend of mine who's slightly older than me, and she reached up, we were talking on Zoom, she reached up into her kitchen cupboard, and what did she take out, Pudge?
Was it an old rotary telephone?
It was but it was a new style rotary phone that would work with the current system, because she said, Jackie, I'm like you. If we have a power outage, no mobile phones and no ways to contact anybody. So I thought, note to self, I need to try and get one of those. But, you know, when we had that era, I mean, even when I first started my self-employment business, I'd been working in the Maldives when the internet was connected there, dial-up. We had dial-up here in England, you know, where I mean, Pudge, do you even remember dial-up when you used to get that dialing? Do you? Oh, good. I'm glad I'm not sounding like a dinosaur here.
I think I was not even my teenage years, and my dad got into computers, and I was starting to follow on at that point. And my goodness, I hated the dial-up internet so much. Oh God,
just waiting for that watery. Do you know what, Pudge? I think I'm actually going to hide behind my fan here, because I'm beginning to feel really old. But anyway, in the era, of course, of analog communications, and let's come back to the art of the spontaneous phone call, you had no option really, did you? You just picked up someone. Hi, Pudge. How you doing? We didn't even say, hi, Pudge, have you got time to talk? Because it was a given that if Pudge was busy, you'd say, hi, Jack, sorry, can't talk right now. Can you call back? Right. And then we get into this internet world, and then, you know, we move from dial-up to broadband, and now we've got super fast broadband. And, you know, goodness me, what do we do, you know, when we haven't got that, particularly when we're working, because we rely on this kind of technology. And then we get into the realms of Skype. I started using Skype when it was first developed in my business, because it saved me a fortune and stopped me from flying around the world for meetings. So that was a good long while ago. So don't get me wrong, I'm not a complete dinosaur. I am quite tech savvy. But, you know, we go from Skype, then we move into various other kinds of VoIP. Then we've got Messenger, we've got WhatsApp, we've got Signal, we've got Telegram, we've got TikTok, Snapchat, this chat, the other chat. And what has it led us to, even before the pandemic? Hi, Pudge. Are you free?
Silence.
It leads to the send the message before you call. Now, I work alone, and because of my health, I do spend time alone, and I love a spontaneous phone call. And to put that in a little bit of context, I had a big birthday last year. Now, Pudge, you're a clever man. If I'm 61 in a couple of weeks' time, I'm quite sure you will know how old I was last February.
You were 60 years young?
I was 60 years young, Pudge. I will love you forever, my darling. I was 60 years young, and it was lockdown.
Oh, of course.
Right?
Of course.
So, okay, lockdown. You know, you've got to get on with it, right? It was astonishing. From about 6:45, because I worked all over the world apart from the Americas, and I've lived all over the world apart from the Americas. I have friends all over the place, including one working in Antarctica at the moment on a contract. So from about 6:45 in the morning, right the way through to about 11 o'clock, way past my bedtime, it was phone calls. It were landline phone calls. Wow, I never get a landline phone call. It was calls on my mobile that come over Wi-Fi calling. It was calls on all the different channels that we use these days, and even spontaneous video calls. And you know what? I am so blessed because that carried on all day, and I even landed up having my lunch and my dinner on video calls with friends.
Oh.
And none of those calls, the reason why I share that is none of those calls were planned. They were all spontaneous. And in truth, I had a higher degree of social contact on my birthday than I would have had if it hadn't have been lockdown.
Wow, that really does say a lot, doesn't it? And even the way you're speaking about it, I can see your face lighting up.
Yeah.
It shows how much pleasure can be derived from just having an actual phone call rather than these messages that you're waiting for. You can't actually hear the person.